Do the scriptures reveal that Yah is actually afraid of something? Hi, this is Barry Phillips at 10-Minute Torah. This is the last day, not necessarily the fourth day or fifth day, the last day of the Torah portion, Ha'azinu. I pray that your fasting and prayers yesterday on Yom Kippur have been heard, that your intercession for Israel has indeed been heard, and that Yah responds with his mercy for his people, his guard, his keeping, and that he promotes his kingdom now through the hands that have been washed, and brings honor to his name. All right. And Deuteronomy 32, we come down to an unusual verse, and let's go with verse number 24, or let's go back to 23. Yah is in the middle of discussing how that his people have turned from him, and that his response is to allow hardship and lack, invasion to come upon them. He says in verse 23, I gather their evils upon them. I use up my arrows upon them. He's talking about his own people here. Wasted by scarcity of food and consumed by heat and bitter destruction. In the teeth of beasts I send upon them with the poison of serpents of the dust. The sword bereaves from the outside, in fear from within, both young man and maiden, nursing child, with the man of gray hairs. Verse 26 and 7 says, I said, I should blow them away. I should make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. And here it is, verse 27, if I did not fear the enemy's taunt, lest their adversaries misunderstand, lest they say, our hand is high, and Yahweh has not done all this. The King James says very much the same, referencing Yah as having fear. So we don't, we see that men are fearful of Yah, but here it would seem that at least in these translations it says, lest men should boast that they did it. I fear that. The Tanakh, the JPS, Jewish Publication Society, from Art Scroll, the Tanakh says, this is their translation, verse 27 says, were it not that the anger of the enemy was pent up, lest his tormentors misinterpret, lest they say, our hand was raised in triumph, and it was not Hashem who accomplished all of this. Now that's quite a bit of a different reading. And then one other resource here that I will reference for you. And this is more of an annotated rendering of the scriptures from the Kahot Torah commentary. And it says, and we'll go back to verse 26. I would have said, I will abandon them as completely as I have commanded them to abandon the corners of their fields. I will erase their memory from humanity. Were it not that the anger of the enemy is built up against them, and therefore I cannot annihilate them, lest their adversaries ascribe their victory to their own foreign deity, and lest they say, the power of our hand is supreme, and it is not God who has done all of this. Now that kind of enlarges upon the whole thing. What I find interesting here is that the word that is used here for fear is the word ger. The referencing a lot of material today. Theological Word Book of the Old Testament. And it is taken from a reference of number 330 and then number 332. Ger means, number 330, I abide, to be gathered, to be a stranger, to dwell with, to gather together, to remain. It's the idea of, we know a ger or a ger is one who is a foreigner who comes in with Israel, lives among them, even though they are not Israel or a Hebrew by lineage or any rights of DNA and blood claim. They are from another nation, another people, but they come and they dwell among with Israel, and they live as they do. They accept Yah as their deity, as their Almighty, their Supreme One. They follow the Torah. They follow the legal code of the country. And so they have fully assimilated or are assimilating into Hebrew life. And Yah says, do not oppress them. Don't treat them differently. Let them come and live among you if they're willing to live as you live. Now, if as is in the case of many nations now in the earth, we have people that are from one culture, language, nation, ethnicity, and they come into a different one, a radically different one, and then they demand that their host country adopt them as they are, and that the host country turn their culture to the one who is the stranger. A great example of this is those who are from Islamic observant nations going into nations in Europe and demanding the Europeans stop being Europeans. They want to infiltrate. They want to demand that Sharia law be observed, etc. That's not a ger or a ger. So then we go to number 332, and it's more in line with what we have translated here, is to be afraid, to fear, and to stand in awe. So it's to be intimidated by one who is stronger or superior. Now, certainly Yah is not intimidated, but the idea that Yah is desirous that his actions not be misinterpreted. I think the better way of understanding this, that Yah says, I am trying to avoid allowing the enemy to gloat that when they are victorious over my people, that they and their own mighty ones are the ones that have prevailed. And in fact, by overcoming my people, even though my people are estranged, they understand they have overcome me. How does this apply? Where are we at with this? I have shared recently several times that there is a shift in the spirit that is taking place over the last month or so. Let's call it 6 weeks to 2 months. And in this shift, some things have been happening that have had the consequence of shaking and sifting all of humanity, not just those who believe, but those of humanity. And Yah is sorting out those, separating those who are against him and against his people Israel, not just the sovereign state of Israel, but his people, his covenant people the world over. Many years ago, a professor emeritus from the University of Virginia came to House of David in around 2003, I believe, and he made this statement that in the last days there will be the absolute polarization of the earth. Everyone in the earth will receive one of two marks, either the mark of the beast and that system, or the mark of Elohim, and be sealed in their foreheads, spiritually speaking, as belonging to the Most High. Obviously, we know who is going to outnumber who. The world seems to be very much determined that they are going to single out those who follow after the mighty one of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that they are going to rail against Christianity, against Messianic observance, even against Judaism, and that they are going to separate them into a place of being attacked. Yah says, even though my people have been disobedient, I will not allow the adversary to gloat over their perceived destruction of my people. May Yah rise up and defend his people redeem us, restore us, and cause us to be worthy of the guarding of his hand. Shabbat shalom to you. May your upcoming feast of Sukkot be an incredible experience. May you find the King near. We rejoice with you in your celebrations. And until next week, Shabbat shalom. Your fast be successful, impacting, life-changing, and until Friday, shalom.